Welcome to Fostering Bridges, a podcast dedicated to uplifting, supporting, and empowering foster, adoptive, and kinship parents.
All right. Today I am visiting with John Thigpen here in East Texas, and John is one of, in my opinion, one of too many empty nesters who have gone from empty nest to a baby in the crib. And so, John, thank you so much for joining me today, and want to kind of hear a little bit about your story. But before you get too far down that line in the foster care world, John, what do you do in everyday life?
I'm retired from one job, and I'm working on my second retirement right now. So,
All right. So retirement, and you have now had a baby in the house for almost 2 years now. Is that right?
be almost a year and a half.
Okay. So I'm just, how does, again, without giving away too many details that are confidential, because I understand your case is still going on, how do you go from empty nest to a baby in the crib? What kind of scenario pops up in life that gives that to you?
It was strange. As it happened, we were on a trip to North Carolina, and my wife's daughter called us, and her unofficial son had a girlfriend, and she got into a situation where the child was taken, and they called us to ask if we could foster because she was not able to medically. And we said, we'll think about it. And, we drove another 1,000 miles, and we talked about it and said, well, yeah, I think we could do it, because we were thinking, and what we were told, it'd be from like 3 weeks to maybe 3 months. We're like, sure, that's no big deal. We'll do what we can to help.
And that's a long conversation to talk about it. You got a 1,000-mile drive to talk about it. I assume that was quite an interesting chat.
It was, because in the past we've had grandkids live with us, and when the parents finally got up on their feet where they could get on their own, we had discussed it before and said, what about it? And I'm like, no, I'm fixing to be retired, and I'm done raising kids, and I don't want to, it's their job to raise kids, not mine.
Right. And now
and we had both agreed that we weren't going to do that.
Right.
And then this popped up.
So you'd been empty nest for how long?
On and off, probably, I don't know, 6 years, give or take.
Okay. And no thoughts on your mind about, I want to be a foster parent?
No, I was wanting to be retired when I get to retirement age again, and be able to travel and do trips and stuff like that.
Yeah. So obviously, so you guys said yes to a challenging situation. That they said maybe you said 3 weeks to 3 months, 6 weeks to 3 months, and it's now a year and a half.
Yes.
Tell me talk to me about the transition, because I can't imagine. I mean, you hear about the tough transition to go from kids in the house to empty nest. I can't imagine hitting reboot and having an infant in the house. What's that transition like?
It wasn't really that hard, because we've had our grandkids in our house, multiple times through the years, on and off. So we were used to having little ones around. And it was not a drastic change, but it was a change, because we went, from like part-time kids in the house to one full-time child in the house. But my wife loves kids. I had a hard time attaching to kids because I had death of a child back in 2011. So that kind of impacted me on wanting to be around kids.
Right.
But as we got to know him and got to be with him, all that's changed.
Have you, and by the way, that's cool to hear that all that has changed, and the idea of attaching to a child has changed despite that trauma, a decade or more ago. what would you say some of the challenges are? Like what was different having a baby in the house this time around compared to the first time you had kids?
This time was not terribly different. It's different having a child you're not related to,
Hmm.
which makes it difficult to a point, but not horrible. It was just having to readjust our lives around a child, the getting up in the middle of the night and stuff of that sort.
I know I tell people that in my, late 40s now, waking up to a toddler in the middle of the night or an infant in the middle of the night, I don't recover the same the next day as I did in my,
Yes,
mid 20s. So
yes, it's different when you're in your 30s doing this than when you're in your 60s.
yeah. Do you think there are any unique challenges that you guys have faced? Because like babysitters and date nights, and you just went from 6 years of being able to spend as much time as you want with your spouse to now it's, that all got reset. And now how do you guys relate? How do you get that time?
It wasn't horrible. I mean, because I'm basically a homebody anyway. I'm being chased by a child, so I'm moving around the house.
Uh,
I think the hardest part with it was he would get his days and nights mixed up,
hmm,
and he would decide at 2 o'clock in the morning it's time to play. So either me or my wife would be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we'd play till 5 or 6 in the morning, and then he would decide it's time to go back to sleep,
yeah,
which would make it wasn't terribly hard. It just, you're tired.
right.
It disrupts your schedule, so it makes you tired. It makes, like most parents, you grab sleep when you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And is your bride retired? Is your spouse retired?
She's disabled, so she's home all the time.
Okay.
So
And
you were asking earlier about date nights and this and that. We've only been out once in the past year and a half by ourselves
oh, why
because
is
he's
that?
always just not a real big desire to. We enjoy it. We have another one planned maybe here in the next few days, but he's such a joy to be around.
Hmm.
And of course, him being not ours, we're trying to be extra careful. But a lot of times we go places, we just carry him with us because it's a joy to see him and a joy to be around him. And people enjoy seeing this child with these old people, and he's good and well behaved.
And so it's the time away together. It hasn't been restricted because of lack of babysitters or opportunity, but rather you just love having the baby around. Is that what you're telling
Yes,
me?
yes, it hasn't been a struggle. Every now and then, we'll kind of get where we want to go out on our own, but so much of the time we carry him with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any pointers for grandparents who might be in a similar situation where a grandchild might be coming back to them or not coming back to, but coming longer term than they ever would have imagined? Any pointers that you guys would have for them as you have experienced this?
I don't know if it'd be a pointer. We just treat him as if he was our child,
Mhm.
show him our ways. We treat him like we would our own child, discipline the same way, and expect them to act the same way.
Yeah.
That is, as far as struggles with it, we've never had any. He's been a really good child. He hasn't had issues like some of the stories you hear from other fosters.
Right. And at this point, I'm assuming you don't know for certain whether he's long term, but you guys have become open to that. Is that right?
At this time, he's going to wind up being permanent.
Okay. And so wow, that's a big deal, right?
Yes, because when we first signed on to do this, CPS and 4 kids, 4 family, and caseworkers, are you sure you don't want to adopt? We're like, no, absolutely not. We do not want to adopt. we want him to be with his mother,
Mm-hmm.
which that was the goal in the very beginning, was reunification. And as time went by, the courts and us could see that it wasn't going to go that way.
Yeah.
And then of course, you get attached. They become part of your life, part of your family. And then you don't want to give them back.
Right. Right. Do you think that heart change, was there a moment in your experience that all of a sudden you knew that you had made that heart transition from, no, this is temporary, to, Lord, please don't let him leave?
Yes. It probably took about 9, 10 months because there were some issues along the way. And my wife was like, they're going to take him, they're going to give him back. And it kind of hit home at that time that, he may not be here. We've gotten attached to him. He's part of our family. Everybody in our family loves him just like he's our own.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of got hit with that we may not be able to keep him.
So,
But we went into it with the hopes of not, so
right,
he could be back with his mom.
right. I wonder, sometimes God reveals things to us a small amount at a time. And I don't ever accuse God of bait and switch. He's got a more grand plan than that. But I sometimes wonder if he intentionally only gives us a little bit at a time, because if we knew the end picture, we might be afraid of it. And it takes
Yes.
time. It takes time to change our heart and prepare us for that emotionally. So it's exciting to hear that you guys have made that transition. So I'm curious now, this is a formal foster placement, or did they call it kinship? What they label you guys with?
We started out as fictitious kinship because we weren't technically related to anybody in the whole situation, but it was easier to get in place that way quickly than go through the other channels.
All right, so it was kinship, being close friend or relative, and you guys were close enough that they said, we'll call it good?
Yes. And then as time went by, the more he was with us, they considered us family because he was with us so long. So we went from fictitious kinship to full kinship.
Okay, which gives you more, I guess, legal standing and opportunity when it comes to adoption, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thinking here, man, when you look ahead, so obviously your heart's changed as far as, uh, having a child in the house for the next 16 years. And when you look ahead, do you dream differently now for when you think about the next 15, 16 years compared to what you had dreamt of? Or have you found a way to merge those dreams?
I think we've come to merge them together because I want to give this child vacations,
Mm-hmm.
see things that otherwise he wouldn't see or do. Because when I was young, we took vacations every year. We went everywhere, 2-week vacations. I'm not going to be able to afford a 2-week vacation, but I can save up enough money where we can go somewhere for a week and he can see the mountains. He can see the ocean. He can see many other things along the way, stuff that he will remember and take with him the rest of his life.
So it's switched a little bit from what you told me a few minutes ago, in the idea of retirement being this opportunity to go adventure. Now it's about creating new memories for him, huh?
Yes,
Which
but
is kind of
also doing the retirement adventure at the same time.
right. Which is,
He'll just be along for the ride.
yeah, I think that's what most parents desire, right? Is create adventurous memories for their children so they look back fondly. Um, I'm curious, how can the community, and I'm not asking this in the sense of, how do you need us to help you directly, but whether it's your family or other, grandparents that are taking children into the household, what are ways that the community can help out in those sorts of situations to come alongside and encourage and lift you guys up?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that need financial help. We do not.
Hmm.
And back when we first started this, Brenda was having a medical issue, and we contacted y'all, and y'all set up a meal train for us, and that was a great help because with her not feeling well and me being at work and having to take care of her child full time, she was not able to cook meals,
Hmm.
consistently. So the meal train was a big help, and that helped us out on weekends, which were usually her worst times.
Okay. So just coming alongside. How about things around the house? Do you think, is it one of those things where if people show up and mow your lawn that's beneficial? Or, I'm, by the way, I'm asking this question because I'm constantly telling people you don't, I mean, I love if you open your house to a child, but you can get involved and help even if you can't open your house to a child. So I'm looking for ways to plug people in.
Okay, yeah, I mean, luckily my yard's not big enough. It only takes me an hour to do it. For us, not that we need it, but somebody to come clean the house.
Hmm.
Because, when you have a child, you don't have a clean house.
Right.
As soon as you get it clean, it's within 30 minutes, it's trashed again. But the other stuff, like getting the dust off of furniture, stuff like that,
Yeah.
just the stuff that a parent usually wouldn't have time for because they're too busy chasing a toddler around
The,
trying to
the
keep the toys picked up, and then but the other parts of the house kind of get left behind.
right. The deep clean things. So, well, I have a couple more questions before I let you go today. Wanted to ask, and if you're comfortable answering this, you mentioned early on when you and I were talking about your situation, probably over a year ago, that, at least at that season, you had this little one calling you grandpa, or it was a phrase that was along the lines of a grandpa type term. And then one of the last times I talked to you, you mentioned you guys were deciding whether or not you would have him continue that using that same term. Um, Talk to me about that. Like, what was the decision process on that, and what are your thoughts on that?
We figured that we would stick with grandma and pawpaw because of the age. I
Hmm.
mean, because I'm 61 years old. He's 2.
Yeah.
And that was originally our reason for not wanting to do any kind of fostering or adopting, because when they graduate high school, I'll be almost 80 years old, which that doesn't matter now because God has taken us down this path.
Yeah.
And what God wants, God gets. You're not going to be able to change it. So we've just embraced it. And we do want his mother to be in his life.
Hmm.
And we do want him to know her as mommy. He's still going to get visits occasionally, per the court and per agreement through us. But we don't want him to be, 8 or 9 years old and say, I have a mommy. Where is she?
Right.
We want him to be a part of her life if she allows that to take place. Now, if things change where that's not able to happen, then we'll have to cross that bridge when he gets old enough to ask. But
Right.
we
Always
don't want to take,
guarding.
yes, because we
Yeah.
don't want to be mommy and daddy if he has a mommy somewhere else. We don't want him to have that confusion.
Okay. All right. And so you're going to hold on to that phrase. Um, it'll guard a little bit of, if you're out and about and someone sees, 62-year-old with a 3-year-old, right? Um,
Yes.
and just go ahead and embrace the title of grandpa, and it is what it is, huh?
Well, it's to me, it seems appropriate
Yeah.
because not many people my age or older are going to have kids. I know people that do. I'd always planned on not being one, but he's the same age as many of my grandkids.
Right. Yeah. I
And that's how they know me. And, for one grandkid to call me grandpa and to have him call me daddy, it's going to be, it may or may not be confusing, but I don't want them to even have to worry about that.
Right. Yeah, I'm still in a little bit of denial on that scenario, by the way, because I'm 47, which isn't that old to have a 4-year-old, but the reality is I am older than her biological grandpa. And so there's
Yeah.
a little bit of fun there. But I'm trying to keep my baby face, so maybe it won't show up, but I'm sure by the time she hits high school, it'll be showing pretty heavy.
Oh
So,
yeah. I mean, because we live with the part that if at some point in the future we are able to adopt, all his quote siblings will be in their 30s.
yeah.
And my kids are in their 30s, her kids are in their 30s. Some of them, I think one of them's 35.
Mhm.
So to have a 2-year-old brother, it just kind
Yep.
of throws things off in perspective.
Yep. That's that's the sad reality of the messy world we're living in. John, one more thing here. If so, I'm going back to your thoughts on at one point with grandchildren and having them more, you're like, we're not doing that. Okay. And then, but God put this in your lap, and obviously you said yes, and you're continuing to say yes. What words of encouragement or thoughts would you give to someone who's in a similar situation? They're retired, just started getting to play golf a little more, sleep in a little longer, or whichever they do. Life has changed now. They're empty nesters, and God presents this opportunity to them of, wow, it's a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice, and they're weighing that, they're praying about that, they're thinking about it. What would you say to that family or that individual?
I would say think hard about it, pray hard about it. But in our situation, this child has been such a blessing to us. We don't sit around and do the usual stuff we used to. We do stay home a lot, but we have this child running around who's demanding attention and happy, and we get to see him grow up. He's learned how to walk with us, how to talk, how to run. Now he's talking sentences.
Hmm.
He says he wants to go outside and play. He wants to watch TV. He wants to play on his tablet. He's able to communicate with us, and to us, it's a joy. And to go out in public, like at church, when church knows we have a foster child, and people just say, "You're so blessed, and you're such a blessing for him." And yeah, at times it is hard, but overall, he has enriched our lives so much.
So a lot of sacrifice, it's hard work, but for you, you're saying the blessing and enrichment of life have been worth it and brought joy.
Yes, I would say the benefits outweigh the the cons way more.
Right. Well,
There
John,
is a little give and take, but that's just life in general.
yeah. Thank you so much for taking some time and visiting with me today, John. I appreciate you, appreciate what you and your wife are doing. We pray for you frequently, and so appreciate you coming on today.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another
All right, so
episode of
that'll-
Fostering Bridges. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights, encouragement, and a reminder that you're not alone on this journey. If you found value in this episode, please share it with someone who might need it. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. Remember, building bridges in our families, our communities, and ourselves is a continuous journey. Until next time, take care and keep fostering those bridges.